Hello, I'm the chairman for our high school, and we're trying to pick out one of the five students that would be best to represent us as a average high school student that is going that'll be leading a political figure from a small third world country. My name is
Uh,
Sanjay Thasma.
Hi, I'm subordinate number one. My name is Neil.
Hi, I'm supporter number two. My name is Arjun.
I'm supported number three, Kevin.
All right. So before we figure out who's going to be the best student that we can take and that the political figure can follow, we need to figure out what an average teenager is. So for me, I think that it has to be someone that has average grades, nothing too low or high, but is also someone that's active inside or inside a community and is willing to help other people.
Mhm.
What do you guys think?
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think that um, it shouldn't be someone incredibly studious, maybe not necessarily an IB student, but also not someone who doesn't really care about schooling. A healthy mix. I think a good balance is necessary.
What do you both think, Kevin or Jude?
Yeah, I generally agree with Neil in that it shouldn't be someone who's completely absorbed into school. They should have their own personal life as well, unlike some of the more studious students. But again, they also shouldn't just be throwing it all away and just doing nothing. They should be someone who's generally trying in school, but isn't completely absorbed into it, but at the same time also doesn't care about it.
Yes, we want someone who wait, we want someone who can do school, who are doing well in school, but
All right.
also have a social life.
All right, that's a good idea, Kevin. All right,
Mhm.
so I think this also goes back to the how problems can arise from a student that's not ready to be with a political figure. Like for example, if they're super harsh or they don't really watch how they speak, I don't feel like that would be the best way to show a political figure how an average high school student is, because usually we're high school students usually know when to make sure that they should be speaking politely or if they should be speaking in a different tone. So I think that we should also take that into account.
Yeah, I agree. Also, we should look at the other end of the spectrum. We can't have anybody too abrasive, but we also can't have anybody too shy. Because if they're just sitting there not talking, that's not going to do us any good.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Yeah,
But
I think would
I think we
generally,
have to find that perfect balance. Go ahead, Arjun.
I think would generally be a better idea to have someone that's a little bit more extroverted, so they can
Yeah.
at least carry a discussion with them, and someone who maybe doesn't get too involved with their emotions, just be able to have a platonic discussion.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Kevin, you got anything to add?
Uh, yeah, like what everyone had said. We don't want anyone too shy because it'll be awkward for everyone.
All right, let's get through these five students and pick out two that we think is the best. So we're gonna start with Ling. She's a senior and an A+ student, and she's in line for valedictorian, so she's the top of her class. And she's been accepted to Harvard and Yale. But as we said before, she is somewhat shy, but she can adapt to various social situations. She has, she doesn't have a lot of friends, and she competes in science fair, and she tutors math students, and wants to take a leadership role in the Museum of Natural Science. So, what do we think about this candidate?
I immediately think she's a good candidate because she has a decent balance. Like you pointed out, she is kind of shy, but the adapts to various social situations easily does seem like that would counteract. I think that she would be a good candidate.
I actually had the exact opposite opinion, which I don't think she would be a good candidate simply because we're looking for the average high school student, not the perfect one. She's perfect in everything. You're going to Harvard. You're an A+ student, and plus she's a little bit shy, which could also be a problem. So, would she work? Yes, but do I think she's the best option to represent someone who's average? No.
I say that she's definitely one of the candidates. I can't throw her out immediately, but I would say that if we can find a candidate, I'm looking at more of especially in a grade area, I'm thinking more of a B student, someone who's working but isn't the most perfect student on the planet.
Okay,
But yeah, go ahead.
I agree. No, I was just
Okay.
agreeing.
And
I do agree
think
that
I think that the shy and the few friends, I think that's okay because
Yeah.
Personally, a high school student doesn't have to be someone with a lot of friends, just someone who's normal. I definitely think that she could be a possibility, but I think we have to go through the rest to figure out. Do you have anything?
I do agree that she
Sorry, go
could
ahead.
work.
I agree with Arjun actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think having someone more extroverted than someone shy would be a better idea.
Like, I do agree that she could work, like, technically speaking, but I just don't think she's the best option. Like, I'm sure we'll have some more average students down the line that could probably represent like what a normal high school student is better.
All right, Kevin, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would agree with Arjun. Like, it looks like she's like very top of the line student from
Yeah.
all average.
I think that she would be I think that she would accidentally, like, because she's such a good student, she might end up making the political figure think that an average high school student is someone that works as hard as she does. So let's move on to the second candidate, Carmen. He or she is a senior, captain of the drill team, and she is a C student who is active in theater and well liked by a lot of people and has a boyfriend. Very social and often dominates the conversation. She's going to a local college because she doesn't have enough money, and she has plans to invite the leader to a football game. So looking at this student, I immediately think that she's like the opposite of Ling, where she's more away from like actual academics, but more towards like extracurricular activities.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think?
I think that actually might be a bit of a detriment. I think she's too away from academics. I think that, it is a politician in the end. I think, inviting your boyfriend in football games, I think that's a little much, especially for meeting a political figure. I think we might want someone a little bit more studious.
I honestly,
yeah, go ahead.
I honestly think she's actually a better option than Ling. Like, again, maybe not the best option, but I think she's better in that she's pretty extroverted. Looks like someone who can get along with people pretty easily. Actually maybe showing them a football game actually might be a good idea to show them like this is like what average high school students like to enjoy. This is what they see for entertainment, that type of thing. She can kind of show him what it is that high schoolers in America value. But at the same time, she might be a bit below average because she is a C student, so maybe not the best representation, but I believe a better representation than Ling.
Kevin, you have any thoughts?
I would kind of disagree because Chairman Sanjay here, he wanted the student like between A and B grades. She has a C grade, but also she's like very social. So she could be like talking a lot more than what she could be from like regular or other ordinary high school students.
That's true, actually. I agree with Kevin. She might dominate the conversation too much.
I actually think that both Ling and Carmen are the opposite ends of the spectrum. One that's really like oriented towards grades and academics, while the other is more oriented towards like more extracurricular activities. I think we still haven't met someone that's like in between that can like be both, but not too much on either side. So let's go to Jada Williams, a junior who is in AP Art, president of the art club, won several local and state awards for her artwork. On a slow track until they discovered her dyslexia. Generally quiet, but very personable. Considered an overachiever and hopes to be an artist someday. Thinks the leader might like to spend time at an art gallery and museum. So when I looked at Jada, I thought that first I didn't really see like what her grade average is, but I thought that when they mentioned dyslexia, I was kind of interested because I didn't know how that relationship would work with the political figure. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think this is actually a really good candidate if we're looking, or based on what we've been saying already. She seems to be a healthy mix between the two. She said she is generally quiet, but that she is also very personable. And I think that inviting the leader to an art gallery might be something. It's not necessarily an average high schooler move, but it might be very impressionable.
I think she's a valid candidate that could work, but again, I don't know if she would be my first pick simply because I'm not sure she represents the average high school student because like she seems to have an extreme passion for art and seems to be an overachiever in that aspect. And I don't really know if like that really translates to what the average high schooler would be. Like someone is very passionate in a single subject.
I would agree with Arjun because like I don't believe like high schoolers are well a lot of them are like passionate in a single subject. There's like a few or maybe none until they figure it out what they're passionate about. And that she's generally shy. So then, well, most of the time. So she might be like coming off too shy at the art museum and just be too focused on the art than interacting with the politician.
Yeah, I actually agree with Kevin on this point. I feel like her commitment to art might accidentally get in the way of meeting with the political figure, especially with things like dyslexia and being quiet. I think that can really affect her communication with the political figure. Not that I think that dyslexia is a problem. I believe that a lot of students have academic difficulties, but which I think should be represented. I just don't think that it's the best time to represent her disability with an actual political figure.
I think she's
So-
a talented individual, but just
Yeah.
doesn't represent like what a general high schooler acts.
Let's go to the fourth person then. So now we're going to Bahir. He is a senior and he's around an A to B student who is active in debate and often advocates to change school policy for the better. He competes regularly in mock trials and debates on current issues, generally well liked, but was suspended last year for a fight after an emotional outburst likely relating to his parents' divorce. Accepted to Georgetown, plans to take the leader to a debate competition. I personally like this candidate the most out of the ones we've seen so far, because I feel like the A to B student is like the closest thing you can get to a real average. And being active in debate and talking about current issues is something that I feel like a lot of students in this time are getting really used to. I feel like current problems and current issues are something that high schoolers like talking about, either through social media or through just the news cycle, whatever it is, they like talking about that. And I feel like that Bahir shows that really well. But I'm not sure about the emotional outburst and the suspension. What do you guys think about that?
Actually, I think that balances him out as a candidate. Because imagine if he had a perfect record, he would be a perfect student. He would be too perfect for representation of a high schooler. Considering that he has a little bit of uncertainty about him, a little bit of incident that happened in school, it makes him a more well-rounded candidate, I'd say. And I think that he's a good choice because he seems very well-versed in public speaking and speaking in general. So he would get along with the politician quite well.
Yeah, I agree that he's probably, as of right now, the best candidate we've had, simply because, like, when you look at his grades, he's a pretty average student. He's active in some extracurriculars like debate, and that might make him a better speaker for when he talks with the leader. And although, like, he had that emotional outburst, that was last year, and like, I mean, anyone would have some shock after their parents get divorced, and again, that was like a whole year ago. So I don't think that should really be a big factor to take into consideration. Plus, he's quite well liked, and he's going to a pretty decent college, and I think he's a good option.
Yeah, I thought that the outburst would actually be a problem, but I actually have to agree with Neil that it makes the person look more well-rounded. And I feel like an emotional outburst, even though it must be horrible, I feel like it, in a really weird way, I feel like it shows that some students, like in high school, every student is going through their own sort of emotional turmoil. And I feel like this Bahir is able to show that pretty well.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
think
think, Kevin?
I
Go
think
ahead.
it humanizes him kind of.
Yeah, I
He's
think
not
that
just
it
like this
makes him more
perfect
human.
student. He's normal, just like anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want it's better to stay away from people who are very static and very focused on school.
Mhm.
But at the same time, we also don't want people who are like over emotional and don't care at all about school. This guy just seems to be the in between that we need to represent the average. A mix of both.
Kevin, what do you think?
I would agree because like we we all have our own problems, and then stuff would happen. We all run on our emotions, and like basically America basically runs on our emotions with all the police brutality and that stuff. And then he does the debate, so he'll keep the conversation flowing between him and the politician.
Oh, that's actually an interesting idea. Him
Yeah,
being
that's a
able
really
to
good point.
debate and talk to him. Yeah.
Also, I think taking the leader to a debate competition might be a good idea, just so you can show generally like what are high school students interested on, and like what is their extended knowledge on certain topics, that type of thing.
Yeah. I really did like Bahir, but it's time to go to our next candidate, Jacob Jones. He's a junior and a C student. He drives a motorcycle with visible tattoos. He is self-confident and well-liked by both students and teachers. He has a good sense of humor and started a recycling project at school that had become successful and copied by other high schools. He plans to take the leader to a recycling center. Now, I thought this was a really interesting candidate because the driving the motorcycle and visible tattoos made me almost stereotype him as someone who isn't very smart or very nice. But then later on, when you see it, his achievements in starting a recycling project and being well liked by students and teachers, I didn't really know where to go because he's a C student and everything, but he shows such a diverse mindset. So I didn't really know where to go. What did you guys think?
Well, I actually had the exact same reaction, but I'm thinking that there might be a logistical problem with taking the leader to a recycling center, just because, leader, he's wearing nice formal clothes. He doesn't want to get dirty. He doesn't want to smell not unpleasant things. He doesn't want to go to a recycling center. I think that culturally, maybe not culturally, but I can't really think of a word. I think it'd be an impactful experience. However, I don't think that the logistics of it would work out.
I don't really
Plus,
understand.
I don't know how it would affect an average high schooler. It might represent America itself, but an average high school, I think that's a little bit out of the scope.
That's interesting. Kevin, Arjun, you guys had anything to add?
Yeah. For like high schoolers, they don't average high schoolers. They don't really have tattoos or anything. Although he is a very nice kid, and but his grades are kind of on the low side of the what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think that was like the main problem I had here was not only I was okay with the tattoos. I feel like that was a little awkward. Motorcycle too, but I think the C student part was what made it the hardest for me to acknowledge whether he could be a worthy candidate. So now we have to bring it down to two candidates. So I personally thought that that Ling and Bahir showed the best possibilities as a candidate. But I feel like you both, everyone else should also talk about their two most wanted candidates, and we'll see who occurs the most to figure out who should be the two candidates. Go ahead, Neil.
I think it's also Ling and Bahir. Definitely Bahir. He seems like a very strong choice. And Ling, just because she's so studious, I understand that her being shy might be a problem, but I think that she might fit in better with a politician than some of the other candidates.
All right. Arjun, who are your two?
So I do agree with Bahir, but I think the other student should be Carmen, because Ling represents like perfection, like the best possible high school student there can be. And I just feel like that doesn't represent the average at all. Like we should probably steer away from using her, because we don't want to get a wrong impression that every student is like extremely studious. They all go to like the best colleges, or to go to Harvard. They all like spend out their time to tutor math students. Like that's just not representing what an average high school student is. But here, generally, like is pretty average at everything and kind of involved in things outside of school. So I think he's probably the better option of the two. But those are my two options. And
That's
Carmen's
yeah.
pretty social and gets along with people and pretty involved in high school life. So.
All right, Kevin, who did you think was the best?
I was thinking Bahir and Jada.
Oh, okay.
Bahir, like he's like the most well-rounded. He has like about average grades of what a regular high schooler would have, and he has a well social life. And then Jada,
Yeah.
is this a she or he?
I believe it's a she.
Oh, okay. She, because a lot of high schoolers, they'll be passionate about some things, whether it's games uh, or school, later in life, the fields. They'll be passionate about something later in life, basically. But then they'll also have their own struggles or demons that they have to face against. It's like,
So you're saying that you picked Jada because she's already figured out like what she's really interested in, which is like art, and like she's already focused on something which like lots of high schoolers start getting at around this age.
yes, a lot of high schools get to focus on whatever they want to be in the future.
Yeah, I feel like that's actually one thing that Bahir also has this where he's active in debate, and all the candidates really do have one thing that they are focused in. But Jada shows the most consistent interest in an actual topic that will lead to like a possible future employment in somewhere, like becoming an actual artist.
The thing is, I do agree that's a very good point. Like that's a very good thing for our student to have. But again, we're trying to represent the average, and I don't think, like, although that's technically a bad thing that most students don't exactly know at this point in time what they want to do with their future, the majority of students don't know what they want to do with their future. That's kind of the truth. So.
I mean, in all honesty, all of these candidates would be good, I think. But
I think,
out of the best in the list, I think that we all kind of agree that Bahir.
yeah, all of them could do a good job, but I think Bahir would do the best job.
I agree.
So I would feel like the main argument right now is to figure out that second candidate, which should either be Ling or Carmen, because Arjun has brought up a really good point where there is in some high schools, like maybe it's not like the best academic high school in the world, but in every high school, there's always that one like group where like a drill team or like a cheerleading team. In high school, they usually always have that, but not all high schools have students like Ling that are constantly working and getting A pluses. So if we're talking about like overall the most average student out of like the whole US, which one would I pick? It would have to be Carmen.
I
I
agree.
feel like Carmen fits that just a little bit better because I know there are hardworking people out there like Ling, but Carmen really fits that area of like a student that's into extracurricular activities.
Yeah, like I'm not trying to like downplay Ling at all. Like she's a very good student. That's an extremely good thing, but like we're not looking for the best student here or the best like we're not looking for like the best person here. We're looking for who can represent the general interests and how an average high schooler acts and what. So that's why I think really Carmen and Bahir are the best examples. Bahir a little bit more geared to the average, and Carmen's also pretty geared to the average as well because although she might not focus as much on academics, she's more involved in school than Bahir. It looks like.
All right. Okay. We have to move to the last part, which is we have to pick between Bahir and Carmen. So going back to Bahir, let's just look at first. We'll just compare Carmen and Bahir. And Bahir has higher grades, but more of an average grade that we were looking for initially. So from the academic side, I would have to give it over to Bahir. When it comes to school issues too, like where I think that Bahir shows that off a little bit more because lots of students do care about social issues in school. So I feel like we need to evaluate how we're going to pick the student based off of how they interact compared to other high school students and how they show like more of like a moderate type of more of a moderate type of view in high school. What do you think, Kevin?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
So
Sanjay, you brought up some pretty good points. We can compare their grades for one. A B student versus a C student. So Bahir definitely is more what we're looking for in that regard. Active in debate and social issues, and both of them seem pretty social. But just being very interested in debate, having a passion for debate, gives some points in my book. And actually, I'm gonna use this one as a boon for him. The emotional outburst. I really think that it humanizes him from a candidate like Ling. I think that it actually makes him a more attractive choice than others because of that.
I think that also makes him really vocal because one thing Carmen lacked throughout it is not being the most vocal, but here is like really like a debate student, someone who can really talk. So
The meeting.
No, we're all good. We're all
no,
good.
I
We got time.
think that's the unlimited part. Anyways, I think that Bahir, I feel like how he's able to talk can really help with the communication with the political, with the politician. So, Arjun, do you have anything to add?
So I think, like, I understand a lot of good points from here, but you also look at the good points with Carmen. So, I mean, she seems to be a lot more involved in like the social aspect of school than Bahir. And, you know, she has a boyfriend, which is something like pretty normal within high school students, and seems to, you know, maybe be a bit more well-liked and like a lot more active in her social life. So I think Bahir was good in the standpoint of having a well-rounded student who, you know, generally is involved in both, has a decent social life, and, you know, does generally good in school. Whereas Carmen would be a better example of someone who, like, you know, has a very strong social life and maybe, you know, weaker on the academic side and not as involved when it comes to like problems in school.
So, based on everything that we've just said, which one would you choose between Carmen and Bahir?
So I was just about to ask that question. I think
okay.
that Bahir is still got to be the strongest for me. I feel like out of everything that he's done and how vocal he is, and even going on outbursts, just being able to communicate that, I think that that's going to be like the key point that we need to think about when picking who's going to be meeting with this political figure. What do you think, Kevin? Out of Carmen and Bahir, who would you pick?
I would say Bahir, because you know they kind of both have social lives. Since Bahir, he does debate, and Carmen, she's a social person. But the problem is that she's like dominant in her conversation, so she can overtake it. And then since Bahir's in debate, he can like make some argument with the president. Oh, wait. Politician.
He is a president, so you could say that.
I mean,
politician.
maybe. I've some interesting discussions.
Like,
yeah, go ahead, Arjun. You said something real quickly.
I was just adding to what Kevin is saying. Like,
Okay.
you know, maybe some interesting discussions.
Because like he can make some arguments with the politician. Because like we don't always see eye to eye with each other, you know.
Yeah.
So, Neil, Arjun, in one word, go ahead and say who you pick.
Bahir.
Bahir.
All right. So I think we've come to a consensus. Now we just have one last thing we need to talk about, which is how are we going to prepare this student and give him instructions on how he's supposed to lead a conversation and show this political, this politician how he should, how an average high school student is. So personally, I came up with the idea that we just need to prep him with what topics that he can talk about and what topics he can't talk about. For example, he can't talk about like guns and violence and stuff. I'm pretty sure he won't. But as a debate student, he's probably talking about multiple topics. We just need to help like narrow it down and be like, make sure you don't say anything offensive or anything like that. He is an A to B student, so I'm sure he'll be smart enough to figure out like he can't say like a curse word or something to the politician.
So I think it's important that he understands the cultural values of our politician as well. Like, you shouldn't do anything to offend him.
That's important as well, yeah. But honestly, I think he's pretty apt for the situation. He seems, I mean, again, like you were saying, he's in debate. He's a good student. He should know just to be himself and everything will be okay. The biggest thing is not to put too much pressure on him, I think, because again, he did have the stress and emotions related breakdown earlier. So maybe just keeping him out of stressful situations. Yeah.
I think a good idea would be to have some like mock trials, maybe. So like,
yeah,
he won't be too stressed out about it when he does it.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin, what do you think of this idea? I was thinking that if he does ever get too stressed or has too many problems, that we can make sure that if he ever needs to like communicate to like us as a student council that a problem is going on, that we should let him do that. Like halfway through, if he just realizes he's too stressful and he can't take it, that he can just communicate that to us. What do you think, Kevin?
That would be a great idea since like he lost his parents' divorce like about a year ago, and he might still be affected with that. So
yeah, I think we should just be sensitive to that.
So like, if he has an outburst or like he doesn't think he can go on anymore, we have our other options. I think we can agree that probably Carmen would be this. We could also just swap him out with Carmen. Like, there's a problem.
Maybe
already have the
introduction of
alternate,
two
so-
teams. That's a possibility. Anyways, as chairman, I would like to thank you all for coming out today and speaking about these 5 candidates and figuring out that Bahir is the best candidate to go and meet this political figure. We will speak to him and brief him about how he should be speaking to the political figure to make sure that he's respectful. And we'll hope that the political figure the president is able to figure out how an average high school student is in the US. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Sanjay. Have a good day.